We are with you. Week 3 is in the books. Caleb Johnson, as always, special guest on the air, head coach of the Lakers, Mr. Andre Robinson. Andre, how are you today?
I'm doing fine today. Thank you.
I bet you are doing fine after the way Week 3 played out. We're going to break it down for you. We enter the day with 5 undefeated teams. We leave with just one. Who's that, Caleb?
The Los Angeles Lakers.
The Los Angeles Lakers. Head coach Andre Robertson joins us. 4 teams today that were 2-0 lost. You couldn't have ever seen something like that coming. Let's break it down game by game, as we now have 7 teams in a 2-way tie, or I should say in a 7-way tie for second place at 2-1. First game of the day, Pistons win 69-52. So it was back-to-back games with 0-2 teams, and all 4 teams kind of played like their backs were against the wall. Didn't want to go 0-3 into the bye week. So the Pistons basically have their full roster there for the first time. Let's start with you, Andre. What were your impressions of the Pistons who pick up their first win of the season?
I think seeing the Pistons there all for the first time and hearing what was going on like before the season started, a lot of people were high on the team. They was telling me like they had a lot of good dynamic players. Just what I saw from them today, it was like I just saw. I would like to see them play with a little bit more urgency, I guess, is what I took from the game. I think they all played great, stand-up people, but I think they just played like an open gym game today. Is what I saw out there on the court. It was like, hey, we just gonna come down, we're gonna shoot, take a shot, get a rebound, get back, maybe whatever, but with them all there, seeing the chemistry and them getting their first win under their belt, I think that they would have been playing with a little bit more fire against a team that, like the Celtics, were 0-2 also. And I think they were overmatched in a lot of areas, the Celtics were. But they played a good game, and the Celtics, I think they didn't dominate like I thought they would.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think anytime you're sort of playing together for the first time with your team and in a new place, and it's the first game of the day, 12's pretty early to play, I think you could tell it sort of took them a half to get things figured out. It was just a 1-point game at the half, and it was a really good first half. It was one of the best halves of the season, in my opinion, and then the Pistons really did turn it on there in the second half. You had Mark Connor with 16 points leading the way yet again. Capri Alston and Shal Jacobs both make their debut and score 13 and then 11 from Marquette Muhammad. So pretty balanced scoring from their team. CJ, talk about the importance of picking up that win there and getting some of those guys into the gym just so you know what you're working with if you're the Pistons.
Yeah, I mean, you never want to go down 0-3 in a season. I mean, we always mention standings are super important, and getting that 10 or 11 or 12 seed, you never want to be there playing against a top team in the game before the quarterfinals. So getting a win is huge. I was unfortunately not able to watch this game, but from what I've heard, Capri looks like a pretty tough matchup problem for a lot of teams.
Yeah, he's a big man, that's for sure.
He's going to cause some problems. I've seen Mark Connor play. I've seen some these other guys. It's good to get him in the gym. The gym is, for those who don't know, it's very, very unique the first few times you play in it. If you haven't played in the carpet, the lighting's weird. The three-point line's a high school line, obviously, so it's different. So getting some of these guys acclimated to the court early in the season is beneficial for Coach AP. And hopefully this can propel them to a winning streak. Because I want to see these guys compete and be one of the top teams in the league because I think they have the talent for it.
Absolutely. For the Celtics, Jonathan Townsend, again, not as efficient as he can be or would like to be, but he does finish with 20 points. He had a stretch there in the second half, sort of single-handedly kept them in the game. Antonio Phillips, 18 points and 11 rebounds, double-double for him. And then Donald Ellis had 7. The problem with the Celtics continues to be their depth. They're not getting anything on the interior, and that's a huge problem when you play a team as big as the Pistons, who are as big as anybody. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Celtics adjust. No Gavin Webb. Yeah, not a great game from Donald, and, only scoring 7. So if Townsend and Phillips don't get some help, I think the Celtics are going to be in trouble, and it's not like their schedule gets any easier here as they take on the defending champion Spurs in Week 4. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how the Celtics respond, but they're going to need some guys to step up, that's for sure. 1 o'clock game was I think the game of the day, I mean, there were a lot of incredible games, but this game was electric. CJ Link, we'll start off with him. You were here for this game. CJ Link finishes with 30 points and 10 rebounds, 3 assists. I mean, unbelievable game. Walk us through that moment, Andre, one of the probably most unforgettable moments ever in the K1 gym.
Well, I'm sitting on the sideline, and just to take you back a little bit, I'm chirping a little bit on the sideline. I see number 7. What's his name again?
Nick for the Bulls. Yeah.
Crow, yeah.
Crow, that's it. I see Crow. He made a layup on somebody, and he was like, baby, or little. He's a little boy. And he actually got tagged for saying that early in the game. So me, I'm like, you know what? You think everybody, he has a history with me of saying that. Like, I played with him before. Everybody's little. So I say, man, I hope somebody dunk on him. And then we was on the sideline, so we playing. As they get to playing, I see the break start, and as he's dribbling the ball up the court, I see Link coming from the opposite side. So I'm thinking, first, is he going to pass it to him? Second, I'm thinking, Crow, I don't think Crow never seen him coming.
Yeah.
So when he lobbed the ball up, I think Crow thought it was just a weird layup. And as he gets ready to go up, thinking he got a rebound,
he's got CJ Link in his face.
CJ Link is just, oh man, he's just over the top. And it was one of the craziest things I've been a part in the gym. Is totally electric. I love it. It was something to see. Really, really, I've never used this phrase before, but you had to be there.
Yeah, it was pretty special. And not only was that moment special, it kind of felt like that was the nail in the coffin. I mean, it technically wasn't, because the teams both went on a scoring spree at the end of the game. The Bulls just wouldn't go away. But that really did extend the lead and kind of give them just, I think, the momentum they needed to get over the finish line. But so CJ Link finishes with 30 points, like I said, and 10 rebounds. I had to go back and check the stats, because I thought maybe we made a mistake on our end. I've got him down going 8 out of 9 from 3. I mean, that is just ridiculous. So he's certainly in the conversation for Player of the Week. So he finishes with 30. You get Terrell Hendricks with 22. Not a bad game from Terrell by any means, but how often do the Heat play a game where Terrell does not lead them scoring? If Terrell's your second leading scorer with 22 points, the Heat are going to be quite good. Mm-hmm. So anyway, the final in this one is 91-87. You also get 15 from Jacquees Springer and 11 from Keyshawn Williams. So, CJ, talk about the Bulls, who somehow are 0-3. They're way better than an 0-3 team. They've put up 89 and 87 in back-to-back weeks, and they lose both games. Terrible luck, but despite 28 from Munoz, 20 from Krivokapic, 14 from Seth Johnson, and also 18 from Crow. I mean, what do you do if you're the Bulls? I mean, Bulls played a great game again today.
Yeah, last week we mentioned in the podcast, it's not time to panic. 0-3 is maybe time to maybe start panicking for them, and not quite. I think they're still a really good team. They definitely, I think, easily could be 2-1. I think their biggest thing is defense. I mean, I think everyone who's watched them play knows they can score. I mean, Benny's one of the best scorers in the league. Seth is just a tough matchup for anyone, because he can guard the big, he can run the floor. Bobby's a great scorer, but they just have had a hard time getting stops against us, against the Heat today. For whatever reason, teams just decided to have their best performances.
I guess.
Billy had 42 last week. CJ had 8 for 9 from 3. So, I mean, you got to maybe force tougher shots and force guys who maybe aren't their leading scorers into tougher shots. And then, play your game on offense, and I think they'll be fine. There's a lot more wins out there for the Bulls. I think I'm confident they'll finish as a top 8 or 9 team. I don't know. It's going to have to be now or never, really, for them, because any more losses, they could really trend into that 12 to 11 seed. So hopefully they can turn it around defensively, because that's been their biggest issue this year for sure.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't feel to me like they're at the bottom of this league by any means. I mean, again, there are so many teams that are 1 or 2 plays away from having their record be completely flipped. So it is pretty early to, like we said, freak out if you're the Bulls. I think it's just, you got to feel like it's been a little bit of bad luck to give up the points that they have.
Absolutely.
But yeah, maybe there's got to be a little bit of a focus on clamping it down defensively. So we mentioned the Celtics, who are on 3. They take on the Spurs, which is not a favorable matchup in Week 4. Now the Pistons, who do pick up their first win, they take on the Bulls next week. So you have a 1-2 team taking on an 0-3 team. the Pistons win, they get back to 2-2 and are feeling great about themselves. If the Bulls win, all of a sudden the Bulls leapfrog the Pistons in the standings, and now the Pistons are right back to where they were. So that's a 4 o'clock game. That's another really, really big game, I think, between the Bulls and the Pistons. There's going to be a lot of big boys playing in that game. Going to be some men on the glass. So it's going to be an interesting game to see. I wouldn't mind seeing a little Capri Alston and Seth Johnson and Nick Crow down low. We'll see how that all shapes out. Andre, you guys had game of the week at 2 o'clock. It was the only matchup of undefeated teams. And you guys come away, Lakers with the win, 63-56 over the Grizzlies. Not a lot of standout individual performances. Both teams had some guys play well. What are your takeaways from the 63-56 win? And I mean, you got to be feeling good about being 3-0 and beating a 2-0 Grizzlies team that had some momentum off the bye week. But what are you guys thinking and feeling after that one?
Well, I'm feeling pretty good because I know being former teammates, and I know how that goes when you playing a former teammate. It's kind of like I want to beat the teacher type. Okay, we want to prove to you, we want to prove to them. And sometimes the trash talk get in there. I will say one thing. This game was shockingly quiet.
Yeah.
I thought it would be a lot more trash talk, a lot more, back and forth chirping, maybe had to separate a couple guys. So that right there had me a little nervous. But I think I heard the podcast early in the season, or it wasn't the podcast. Naylor came on and did the broadcast with Walt after the game. And he asked him, what game is he looking forward to? And, of course, it was the Lakers. So it was just a huge game. It's one of those games where I'm talking to Dre Jr. on the sideline before tip-off. It was like, for the first time in a long time, we had butterflies before that game. We really did. Like, it was butterflies there because I know those guys, we didn't split up because we didn't like each other or there's bad blood. Walt, understandably, wanted a bigger role, and I'm glad to see him. He's really playing a good level of basketball. I like to see Walt out there. I like to see Chad, those other guys. They play good basketball, and I was glad for a good game, but I was glad to be on the winning side of it. So, yeah, I think that today was a clash of two good teams, and we just fortunately came out with the win.
Yeah, I agree. It's and kudos to Walt. He's put together a great team, and it's not like today's loss ends your season by any means. I mean, it's just the emotions that go into that game. Either team was going to feel disappointed had they not won. Yep. So LJ and Brian playing together for the first time. I mean, 19 points apiece, and then 11 from Kawani and Tone. You guys might not have any big guys, but just a ridiculous amount of talented guard play. Good to see your son, Dre Jr., back out there. He looks better than I thought he would, seeing the sprain that he had. So, CJ, talk about how do the Lakers continue to make this work? I mean, they've got a lot of guys that could play a lot of minutes and have the ball a lot in their hands. So how do the Lakers make this work? And, I mean, they did today. I mean, Duckworth doesn't play a whole lot. He gets there late. But how do they continue to make this work and put together what they hope is a Final Four berth?
Yeah, I mean, Andre and I were just talking in the parking lot actually not too long ago, and I think he was talking about the culture of the team and how they've actually finally all bought into choosing team success over individual success, and I've seen it firsthand this year. I think it's working. I think it's a great problem to have when you have 5 or 6 really really good players and you don't know who's to start, you don't know who to have be in your closing group. So I think if they can buy into that culture of, I don't care if I score 5 points this game and 20 points next game. I think if you just buy into getting wins, getting success, seeing other your teammates have success, they will have maybe 1 or 2 losses during the year, but I think they get the one seed is easily attainable for the Lakers. They're probably my favorites right now if the season ended today. But yeah, I mean, that culture is there from an outside standpoint, watching them play on a week-to-week basis. And I think the Grizzlies, I mean, this was my first time watching them play. I didn't get to watch them last week 1 when they played, but I think they still have a lot of things ahead of them. I think Chad's a great player. His brother Chris showed some things kind of late in the game. Their guard play was pretty good. They had some big shots. So I think they easily can finish in that top 5 or 6 teams if it all works out. But Lakers had a great game. I think they're going to be a tough matchup moving forward with these guards.
Yeah, you didn't see. I hadn't seen Chris White play, but based on what I've heard, I don't think we saw his best stuff today.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't actually take a shot from the floor. In the first half. You wouldn't have thought that going into the game that at halftime he would have only taken just the 3 free throws. So Walt had a solid game. They've got a lot of good guys that I would call role players. I don't mean that to offend anybody. What I mean by that is I think they have a lot of guys who do a lot of different things well, but they know what they do well, and the chemistry they have and the way they play together, I actually really admire. It didn't look like everything really clicked today. I don't know if that was the pressure of a big game or just, they had 2 weeks off, and unfortunately they're going to have 2 weeks off again with the Labor Day weekend, so we'll see if that affects them at all. But if you get all those guys clicking like we saw against the Suns in that first week, it's a very dangerous team, and they have a lot of guys who can do a lot of different things. I don't think they have any glaring holes or weaknesses, in my opinion. But it just didn't quite click for them today, and credit to you guys, Dre, for the way you played, picking up that win. But the Grizzlies are not going away anytime soon, no matter how disappointed they might be with the way the game went today. Not that they lost, but I think just the way it went, they're not going to go away anytime soon. And I know as Walt hears this or listens to this, he's going to be nodding his head saying, you're absolutely right, we're not going anywhere. So how about the 3 p.m. game? In my opinion, this was a huge game for a lot of reasons. The Suns, who were runners-up a year ago, didn't get off to a great start last season. They rattled off 8 straight wins. Could have never predicted them going 0-2 to start this season, and it kind of felt like their backs were against the wall. And then they look at your team, CJ, with the Bucks, and you've got an incredibly talented team that's all there today. Lavelle McIntosh shows up. He's a nice guy to have come onto the court and join your group. You have Billy Baptist there. You get Alex Malnich back. I would say your Bucks team is, on paper, as talented as anyone. Is that fair to say, Dre? I mean,
absolutely.
I'll have you share what you shared with me a few minutes ago here. But you have the Suns kind of looking down, in my opinion, against one of the most talented teams in the league, and they just did not blink. They played a really efficient, a really good game. They win 72-61. I know you guys were disappointed with how you shot the ball in the second half, but Vashon Sims shows up and just casually drops 21 in his debut, 9 out of 18 from the field. Ryan had Kavas has 15, and then just really balanced scoring. You get 11 from Jameer, 9 from John Oliver, and 8 from Jay Kwasnicka, and 8 from Phil Andrade, who shout out to him, who apparently ran a triathlon or competed in a triathlon in Chicago this weekend. So just, I guess, finish the triathlon and roll on into your game. But the Suns showed their depth today. They showed that with Sims there, I think he's not only the perfect replacement for Zirkle, but he's an upgrade by all means, just with all the different things that he can do. So anyway, talk about how the game went. I think the Suns are fantastic. I know you're disappointed with how you played, but these were 2 really high-level teams that went at it, and it was a great first half. At the end of the day, the Suns get into the win column and are 1-2, and you guys suffer your first loss to go to 2-1.
I mentioned on the podcast last week how I think the Suns were kind of backs against the wall, 0-2. They needed a win, and I knew they were going to show up and play their best game, and they did. So I mean, you got to give them all the credit. I mean, they made the shots. They played tough defense. They're really hard on the boards, and they outplayed us. So I think fully give them credit. I wish we would have shot better, like you said. I think we left a lot of points out there, myself included. A lot of open threes we missed that we typically hit. The zone gave us problems initially, and we kind of figured it out, but had some turnovers and some poor shots late. But I mean, I don't have much else to say. I mean, I think the Suns outplayed us, and they played more desperate. I mean, when you're 2-0, you don't have that same level of desperation and edge as you do to a team that's 0-2 who needs to win. And I don't think we showed that throughout the game. And then also just kind of having Lavelle there for the first time all season. I think the chemistry, it worked, but it's also tricky when you have a guy coming in who is as talented as Lavelle. Meshing with Billy and Alex and just kind of figure out, okay, who's shooting the ball now? What's the spacing going to look like? I think we kind of worked through that in the first half, but I think we definitely have more in the tank, and I'm excited to see how our team responds 2 weeks from now when we play. Who do we play?
We play the Rockets.
Rockets, yes, play the Rockets. Yeah,
Let's talk more about that. Yeah,
how we respond after a loss.
Yeah, Lavelle was great. He had 21 and 8. He was 9 of 16 from the field, 3 assists, couple steals. Billy had 18. He was 7 of 19 from the field. so not as efficient as he would like to be. And then past that, it's just nobody else in double figures. Malinic has 8, and you hit a couple threes. But, only 21 points in the second half. You're not going to beat a team like the Suns to, only scoring, 21 in the second half. So Suns, talk about that, Dre. The Suns pick up a big win. Would have been shocking to see them start 0-3, but some people thought they were going to with the Bucks team that they were going up against today.
Absolutely. After the game, I was sitting there and I'm getting ready to watch the Bucks game. I was shocked. I didn't know McIntosh was playing with y'all this year. And I see McIntosh walk in. He's in the layup line. Billy Baptist in the layup line. And Melanic, I'm looking at these guys. I'm like, you know what? This is a nightmare. It's like these are two teams that's playing together that you hope the seeding will put them together in the playoffs.
So you don't have to face them.
Both
That's right.
So it's like, man, I actually left about halfway into the first period because I actually thought the Bucks were going to take it easy. I didn't think that. I'm just giving my honest opinion. Mm-hmm. I thought the Suns had no chance in this game. Of course, they always have a chance, but if I had to pick a team, I thought the Bucks were going to take this one today. And because usually when I leave, either I stay and watch the games or I leave and I turn the YouTube straight on as soon as I get to the parking lot. And I'm watching the broadcast. And I didn't even turn the game on because I thought the Bucks were just going to take it. And when I turned it on, I almost dropped my phone when I heard that they lost. And it's just like both teams are talented. The Suns are really, really great. And the two teams are great. And it's just one of those things where I hope those teams meet each other in the playoffs because I don't want to see either one of them.
That's funny. And, you're going to see one of them next week. In fact, you're going to see both of them in your next 2 weeks. So right on cue, Dre. You'll take on the Suns in week 4 and then the Bucks in week 5. So I don't know if you knew that, but that is kind of funny to think about. The Suns on paper as well are unbelievable. They didn't have Jared Johnson today, and they didn't have Derek Dale today. But Vashawn Sims was great, and they were pretty efficient. I think the Suns roster on paper is second to none. You still have to play the games, and they've got a lot of factors with some age and some guys driving and guys competing in triathlons. So there's a lot of obstacles with that, but what a huge win by the Suns. And we'll talk more. That's a showdown next week with the Lakers. I think that's going to be pretty epic. So 4 o'clock game, the rivalry games continue. Warriors, let's see here. I believe I did the math. I want to say it was 22 games. I could be wrong. The Spurs had won 22 straight games in the K1 League coming into today. I don't know if you knew that. The last team to beat them was none other than the Warriors. That was when Tyree Mosley had a 36-point game. I believe it was like October 22 of last year. He goes 10 out of 15 from 3. This was last year's and last fall. This was the Austin Halcomb, Ryan Kwasnick on the Spurs days. And since then, the Spurs hadn't lost to anybody. They ran the table. They upset the Warriors on the Ray Lawrence buzzer beater. And then, of course, they take Tyree and Latrell with them and just run over everybody in the spring. Well, now they're back playing against Tyree and Latrell for the first time. This game had a lot of hype. A couple big pieces weren't there for the Spurs, Chris Green and Dustin Renaissance, which I think hurt them. And I was a little surprised by how the game ended, but the Warriors come away with a 63-47 win. And all of a sudden, they're 2-1. And it's, I guess, the Spurs are human after all. They finally lose a game after almost a calendar year of nothing but winning. So, Caleb, talk about this game. You called it. Spurs fall 63-47, and just like that, both those teams are 2-1, which seems to be a theme.
It was a fun game to call. It was kind of shocking. But it was a huge, huge win for the Warriors. I can't overstate. I said it on the call a couple times. Just a massive win for the Warriors in the standings, but also just a confidence booster for their guys moving forward. Because like you said, I didn't realize the Spurs had won 22 straight games. That was news to me. But to dethrone the champs who had won all those games in a row, it was huge for them and for the rest of the league that they are human. They are beatable. But I was super impressed with Latrell Tidwell today. I thought he played fantastic. I know Tyrese scored more points than he did. Let me check the stat sheet real quick here. 24 points for Latrell. I think he had 12 rebounds. A lot of those were offensive rebounds. I don't know if distinguished offensive. So, yeah, he had 7 offensive rebounds, which is just outstanding. Just he was the thorn in Trey Johnson's side, which I think that was a fun matchup to watch. Those two guys go up back and forth, 2 good bigs. But, I mean, Latrell all but dominated this game. It was a problem the whole time. Tyree scored more points, took a lot of shots, was a very hard matchup. But I thought Latrell was their MVP today by far. And to see kind of the Spurs, almost fall apart in that second half was shocking. I think they have a lot more in the tank left in the season, but I think the technical fouls were an issue. I think the chemistry, the effort in the second half was strange. So I'll be curious to see if they can recover from that and who's going to be the leader to step out. Obviously, Dennis is their guy, but I think they missed Chris and kind of his scoring ability as well. But it was shocking to see. But, I mean, yeah, credit all the Warriors. They played fantastic, and I'm super excited to see how this team responds to this.
Yeah, I think it was uncharacteristic for sure. Typically, the Spurs control their emotions as well as anybody. They have great chemistry. They have a lot of veterans and a lot of talent, and it's just typically every week it kind of just they find a way to make it work. And just, what they're going to talk about, the final foul count at the end of the game was 14-3. They didn't get a foul. There was not a foul called on the Warriors in the second half. And eventually the frustration from that just boiled over for the Spurs, and that's when they got that sort of string of technicals there in the second half. I felt like when that started, it was still maybe, like a 6 or a 7 point game. Does that sound right? They certainly weren't out of the game.
Yeah, it was definitely under 10.
Yeah, it just, the frustration boiled over, and that kind of was, I think, the end of the game there when you have, however many technical free throws Tyree got to shoot there. He hit 7 of his 8 free throw attempts. But, one of the things I wanted to ask you about, Dre, that I love about this league, so let me say this first, 27 for Tyree, like you said, 24 for Latrell, and actually nobody else on the Warriors scores more than 4 points, and they beat the 3-time defending champions by 16. Who would have guessed it? For the Spurs today, never seen a box score like this from the Spurs. 11 for Bobo, 10 for Ben Green, 9 for Trey Johnson, a couple with 6, a guy with 5. I mean, we haven't seen anything like that since.
Really
haven't seen anything like that since the. We'll just call it the game against the Heat that they had, the early game. So, Dre, talk about one of the things I love about this league is that we use NBA teams now, and you sort of, I guess, when I say like the Lakers, everybody thinks about you and Tone and your son, and we say Warriors, we think Tyree, Otis, Latrell, or Spurs, whatever. One of the things I love is every year now as these teams start to play, you sort of create these rivalries and a little bit of a history in the matchups. So as a coach and a player, like, what is it like for you being a part of that, where it's like when you hear Warriors Spurs, it's like, all right, 2 years ago they played in the championship game, and you kind of think of some of the key players on those teams. What's that like for you?
Absolutely. It's like when you hear those teams, though, like you said, that's the first thing that jumps out at you. I hear Warriors, I'm thinking, man, we got to check Tyree, or, what kind of game will Trail have on the boards? Because those offensive rebounds, oh, man, that's a difference maker in these games. You go on a run, you get 2 or 3 offensive rebounds, that's 6-7 points you can easily swing the game with. So it's like you said, with those names in the Spurs and the Bucks, you hear is what I like about this league is everybody competes at a high level against everybody, but yet everybody gets along with everybody, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You don't see some of these games where guys don't like each other after the game, or we don't speak, or we don't talk. I like that we can really compete against each other as men at a high level like today. I really think that if Walt keeps his team together, I was thinking that today, as a matter of fact. I'm like, you know what?
Get to play him again.
This could turn into a friendly rivalry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's like, you know what? We got round 1. How many times will I see them again?
Sure.
I hope we get to see them over and over again. And that's the fun part of playing these games. I could not. The ref tried to tell us to sit down on the bench.
You just couldn't do it.
I had to take my shirt off. I'm sweating bullets over there. I didn't play a minute in today's game, and it was like I played a full 40. So
that's awesome.
It's exciting. It gets the adrenaline going. I love it. I thought about it all week long, and I think all these guys in this league, they take it serious, and that's what I like about it also. They don't just come in and like, okay, we're going to play this game real quick and leave. It's like you got guys in the parking lot at 7 o'clock
That's
chirping
awesome.
at each other. So it's
I
like
love that.
it's a good culture. I like the direction that the league's going in. I like the teams. I like the talent level. And man, you look at the schedule and it's like I see this happen a lot. We look at these schedules like an NBA schedule. You check win, loss, win, loss. Each Sunday in this league, you cannot just check a win.
No.
You don't check a
We
win.
are past those
Completely
days,
agree.
aren't we?
Completely agree, yeah.
Look at the Celtics. They came out today. No, I was talking around in the gym today, and nobody in the gym really was giving them a chance, and they were right there.
Yeah, that first half was
That
a really
first
good
half
half.
was really good. I couldn't wait to see the second half. It was like 34-35 or something like that at halftime. And this is in a game where everybody thought the Pistons would easily be up 20 or 30 by half. So
Yeah.
that just speaks to the league on how guys take it, and they come out and they're ready to play each Sunday. A lot of these guys are ready to play on Sunday.
Yeah.
And you got to bring your best game on. You got to bring your best game on Sunday in this league.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I appreciate you sharing that perspective for sure. Final game of the day, Nets Rockets. We call it up in the booth. Ends on just a disappointing note.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this one?
Sorry,
Man.
this is the last one.
That was, for how good of a game it was, it was a little disappointing the way it ended. I gotta give him, I feel bad for the Nets, for guys like Ronnie who hit the shot. For those who weren't there, the Nets hit a game-winning shot, tie game at the buzzer. There was a clock malfunction, so the game, they had to redo the play, so the play didn't count. So Ronnie's game-winning three didn't count, but it was disappointing, and unfortunately the Rockets did end up winning in overtime. So it may have stolen a win from the Nets. I'm sure they're going to be listening to this and frustrated, but credit to the Rockets because Antonio Marshall is just he's probably the front runner for the MVP right now. I mean, his stat line, looking at it right now, 37 points. I mean, basically willed his team to the win. I mean, 7 of 8 from the free throw line, couple threes, 7 rebounds. Just was outstanding. Was unguardable at times. Had a couple big steals in the overtime. So he's definitely my front runner for the MVP right now because I think he's averaging over 30 points through 3 games. So he was fantastic. I gotta give a shout out to Sammy. I think Sammy played fantastic. Sammy Hines, 29 points without Martavis there. Really, carried the load on the shoulders and proved he was a great number 1 option. So I mean, again, I feel for the Nets because I think they probably were the better team for almost the entire game until overtime. But you got to play the full game, and I think they let whatever happened in regulation affect their overtime play, which may have been why they lost in overtime. But they're still a good team, still 2-1. Rockets are still 2-1, which kind of adds to the depth of the league.
Yeah. There's a lot of speculation about that play at the end, and what's interesting is you actually think back to the Billy Baptist game winner from last year. You also had a clock error. They reset the play, and then he gets the chance to do that. So this was sort of the opposite of that. Ronnie does make the shot. It's hard to know when the clock would have stopped because there was some speculation. That's just the kind of the word we're using about this whole scenario. There was some speculation that Ronnie had touched the ball sooner than he actually did, and it's hard to know when the clock would have started based off of the angle the person at the scorer's table there had. So it is bad luck for the Nets. I mean, I know the shot went in. That doesn't mean it would have counted because depending on when the person on the scoreboard thought he touched the ball, he might not have gotten the shot off. So it's hard to know. Or does he get it off and there's time left? Probably not, just because there's only 2.4 seconds left. But I think it overshadowed what was a really good game. You said it felt like the Nets were the better team the whole game. I think the Rockets did a better job of controlling the pace of play. They were up there at halftime. Yeah. The Nets kind of went on that run. And when I say the Rockets controlled the pace of play, it was Antonio Marshall, who 37 points. Him and Sammy were just unbelievable today. Of course, he almost has his own buzzer beater to end regulation on the second rendition of that. But this to me felt like a missed opportunity for the Nets. I think first of all, Laster's not there today, which hard to know why Laster wasn't there today. But certainly hope he had a good reason not to be there because that's probably a for sure win if you have him there matching up on tone.
Definitely.
So that's a missed opportunity from that standpoint. But I do think the Rockets did probably everything that they could have with the team that they had there. It was good to have Hunter Jacobs there. Alex Thorson did some nice distributing of the ball. But at the end of the day, I mean, without Antonio Marshall, it's hard to know what that Rockets team would be. But hopefully we never have to see that because he is just special. So what we just couldn't have imagined was that 4 of the 5 2-0 teams would have lost today in week 3, and they did.
A lot of parity.
And a 7-team tie for second place at 2-1, which just makes it, I think, fun to look forward to some of the games we have coming up. So we're just going to quickly hit those games as we always do. Week 4, we start off with the Spurs and the Celtics. You'd think as the Spurs get everybody back, maybe they're big favorites in that game. Dre, what do you? Just very quickly, we'll hit all these games. What are your thoughts on what the Celtics need to do to upset the Spurs?
I think that they need to play the game that they played in that first half of basketball this week. I think they played a really good game. I think at times Townsend takes some questionable shots like they're going to run. He sometimes will jack up a 3 here over 2 players. But I think that if the Celtics can play the game they played, slow the ball down a little bit, take some good shots, I think they can stand a chance. But I think with the Spurs, I think they rebound this week. Knowing that they had an uncharacteristic outing this Sunday, I think they rebound and show why they are the Spurs.
Yeah, second matchup of the day, which I think it's a whole lot interesting with what happened today. The Heat arguably, I mean, nobody had the biggest win of the day because there were about 5 teams that had a huge win today. Really everybody. The Heat win was huge today, though, and a surprising loss from the Nets. So now the 1 and 2 Heat take on the 2 and 1 Nets. CJ, what are you looking forward to in that game?
Yeah, I mean, first off, I hope both teams have a full roster because you hate to see games like when a star player like Martavis doesn't show. So I hope the Nets have a full roster. I hope the Heat have a full roster. I think if CJ Lincoln can kind of start to pair a couple games together like this, the Heat are going to be a very tough team. We all know what Terrell can do. He's a certified bucket. He scores 30 points a game. My biggest question mark for the Heat this year was, will they have a consistent number 2 option? Will they have somebody who can help out Terrell score? CJ had 30 points today, so if he can continue to do that, they're going to be a very, very hard team to beat. Should be a high. I mean, the contrast of styles that we mentioned on the broadcast today. Nets are the slowest team. Well, slowest in terms of pace. Low scoring games. The Heat are the opposite. They want to run. They want to score 90 points. So we'll see what pace or what style of play wins the day, but it should be a really, really good game.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe it was a maybe 64-59 game, I think something like that a year ago. They played in overtime, and the Nets edged the Heat. That was a fantastic game. The Heat sort of came back there at the end of regulation to force overtime. So should get another classic between those two teams.
So I would like to say this really quick. Springer, put him on the player to watch list. I'm telling you.
He's unbelievable, isn't he?
I love him. Yeah, he's a good player.
Watch him.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say is watch him for the next few weeks. If they give him a chance, he can play basketball.
Fair to say he's got athleticism of a guy like Dennis Koger, does he not? I mean, just floats through the air.
Freak athlete, yeah. And he's got a great shot, a great jump shot.
Yeah, and he took some really, like selectively speaking, he took some very good shots today. I thought he was great. So how about CJ Link on maybe like a Sammy Hines next week? Something like the Heat are so athletic they could do just about anything, but something like a Terrell Hendricks on a Martavius Laster or a Springer on Book Lawrence. I mean, those are some outstanding individual matchups to watch for. Suns and the Lakers, that to me has a sort of a Final Four feel to it in that game. The last undefeated team. We'll see for how long, Dre. You certainly hope for a little while longer, but we've got the Suns and the Bucks coming up in a couple big matchups. What's it going to take to knock off a Suns team that today reminded everybody that not only are they good enough to beat anyone, they might just be better than everyone if they have everybody there?
Consistency. We just got to be consistent. We got to stay consistent in playing to our strengths. No matter what the other team throws at us, we got to stay with what we are good at as a team. And I think that will give us a chance. We have to find a way to offset the height disparity, because we do have a height problem, I say that, but we do in other areas. If we could pick up on where we're good at, other teams have to guard us as well. So I like to see us just be consistent. That's the word. I think that's the word going into the next 2 weeks, consistent.
I think that's good. And assuming you have your full team and they have their full team, it's another really star-studded lineup. Two really good teams with a lot of really good players. So we'll see again if you guys can combat the height disadvantage with that unbelievable perimeter guard play that you guys have. So that leaves, let's see here, we have 3 games left to go. Grizzlies and Warriors, I believe, in the 3 o'clock game. I mean, 2 more teams that are 2-1 going at it. What do you think about this one, CJ? I think this has a chance to have some fireworks.
I agree. I'm very curious to see watching the Grizzlies for the first time. I love the way they play defense. I think Walt, Mendy, those guys really aggressive, get after it. Chad. So I'm very curious to see how they guard Tyree, how they guard Latrell. I'm sure they're probably going to throw some bodies. I'm sure Walt will want a shot or two at guarding Tyree. But I think the biggest key for that is how the Grizzlies will guard the Warriors in the half court, because they've proven that they're a tough team to guard. I mean, when Tyree's going, when Latrell's going, they're hard to guard in the half court. And can the Grizzlies score a lot of points in transition? As we know, the Warriors have a hard time getting stops in the half court in transition. So I think those are probably my 2 biggest keys, is how the key of stopping Tyree Mosley, and then how can the Grizzlies continue to get out in transition with Chad and those guys and score easy buckets on them.
Yeah, one of the guys I've always compared Chad to, different player, I get that, but is a guy like Latrell. They both crash really well. They finish really long day in the gym today, really well at the rim. And then you add Chris, who's even bigger than Chad. So I think without those 2 guys, I wouldn't give the Grizzlies much of a chance on the interior. But when you have those guys and Rich Kirk, I think they can match up a little bit on the interior. So, yeah, who guards Tyree? What does that look like? Who is providing points from the perimeter for the Grizzlies? To me, that's the biggest question mark for the Grizzlies the rest of the season, is who's knocking down those shots on the perimeter against some of those best teams that they face. That's a really intriguing, I think, 3 o'clock game against the Grizzlies and the Warriors. 4 o'clock, I think this is another game. This is the Bulls, who are 0-3, and the Pistons that are 1-2. There is just way too much talent on those 2 teams to only have 1 combined win. This is another game that I think is just huge. You talk about 2 teams that, for so many reasons, are going to want to win this game on Sunday. Dre, walk us through Bulls and Pistons. There's going to be some big boys down in the paint going at it, and some good guards too. I mean, both these teams have some really talented players. What's it going to take in that one as the Bulls look to get in the win column and the Pistons try to make it 2 straight?
Man, when I think of that game, it's like, man, I can't wait to see what it looks like in the paint in that game. You got Seth Johnson. You got those big guys from Detroit. You got Cooper Coppage, that really, I think he can be a 2-way player. Like, he's down low, he can step out, he can stretch the floor. So Benny Munoz is just electric.
You're a big fan of Benny Munoz, I know.
Man, Benny can light it up in a heartbeat. And I don't know, I think if you look at the records, like you said, it don't indicate the type of game that I expect.
No, I'm with you.
These 2 teams, and I think it's going to be one to watch. I think you better order some popcorn for that. It's going to be a lot of good matchups. I think that Detroit and the Bulls will be one to watch.
I love that. Week 4 coming up, final game is the Rockets and the Bucks. Another pair, would you know it, of 2-1 teams going at it. So aside from hoping Antonio Marshall doesn't have a good game, what's the game plan for the Bucks to try and get back in the win column?
Yeah, I think we need to establish our identity inside a little better. I think that's one thing that, looking back on the game against the Suns today, that we didn't do a good enough job, is getting touches to Alex and CeCe on the block. I know we'll definitely have a size advantage if Billy shows up or not. You never know with Billy, but I mean, we definitely have those 2 bigs on the inside. We should have a pretty clear size advantage. So getting those guys going early, I think will be our biggest key. Obviously, defensively, how can we stop Antonio Marshall? We're going to throw bodies at him. Hopefully, Tristan Schwartz, is ready to go. Hopefully, Daquan Boxley and myself will all kind of try and mix and match and make life as difficult as possible on Tone. But if we can establish the inside early, and then hopefully force some double teams, and then myself, my brother, Christian Straw, hopefully our shooters can get going. That's probably going to be our game plan. And then just slow tone down.
Yeah, that is the key. Easier said than done.
Very much.
We were
so.
joking. You got Tone Marshall. You love Tone Brooks to death, and then Tone Phillips for the Celtics. I raved about him last week, so it's a good year to have the name Tone.
Tone League here.
Oh my goodness, the 3 outstanding players. But yeah, we thank Andre for joining us on the podcast, and for now you get to sit for 2 more weeks and enjoy being undefeated, the last team to do it, and it took all of 2 weeks for everybody else to lose a game. And hate to break it to you, but you're going to lose a game at some point here too. So we'll see how long you keep the run up. But it's been great to watch you guys play so far.
Thank you. I appreciate y'all having me. It's been fun so far, and I just thank everybody in the league for what they're doing. The guys at the scorers table, those guys that come in each week, and they also have to sit there and be attentive and know what's going on, run the shot clock. The people at the concession stands, I just want to say thank you to those people for helping this league run, because it's something great for everyone. And, man, sitting at the top is definitely a little bit more stressful.
Everyone's coming for you now.
That's
You're
right.
the top dogs.
Yeah.
All 11 teams are coming for you now. So
It's like, man, if I stay in the middle of the road, I might be flying under the radar. But being 3-0, it's like, geez, I cannot let off the gas for 1 second. So
definitely not.
Yeah, well, you get the defending champs next week, or I should say defending runner-up next week. You get the Billy Baptist Bucks. You then take on the Tone Marshall Rockets. You take on the Chills Wills Nets. You take on the Heat. You take on the Spurs. I mean, that's just a ridiculous stretch of the schedule. So we'll be thinking of you guys as you embark on that. It basically is your schedule that speaks to the depth of the league. But thanks for joining us, Dre, and as always, Caleb. Appreciate your work as well. Yeah, a lot of great volunteers. We just appreciate everybody that does what they do to make this happen. So week three, I should say, is in the books. Week 4 coming up after Labor Day weekend. We are off for Labor Day. And I'm going to go ahead and say it's going to be shot clock week 4. I expect.
Ooh, finally.
I can't deliver on a promise. Well, I hope to deliver. I can't promise that we're going to have shot clocks, but things do seem to be trending that way. So hopefully,
That's
I should
gonna
say
change the league,
I do deliver on that. And yes, it
It will
is.
definitely impact the pace of the game, the style of play. I think there'll be more shots, not as many stalling late in games, not as many stalling at the end of half. So I'm curious to see how it impacts the game.
Absolutely, yeah. It won't be as big of a disadvantage to be trailing with a couple minutes to go, but nobody ever wants to be trailing with a couple minutes to go. So hope we can have those up and running. It looks like we will. And be a long, 2 weeks here without basketball. But hope everyone has a safe and enjoyable Labor Day weekend. Spend Sunday, however else you spend Sundays not at the gym. I don't know what that's like, but we'll see everybody back here in a couple weeks. So thanks, Dre. Thanks, Caleb.
Thanks, Joe.
And we'll see everybody soon.